So, boxing, bloody hell. Welcome to Off the Brawl. I'm Ronan Mullen, back from New York, joined by the champ, Andy Lee. Andy, how are things?
Grand, how are you?
Not too bad. And Ackle's adopted son, Phil Egan. What's the crack?
All good, yeah.
Did you wake up in the early hours of Sunday morning, or did you wake everyone else around you more?
My strategy got a bit sidetracked because of the Champions League final. I brought my Sky card to Ackle for the weekend.
Tanked up.
Well,
6 times, Phil.
Yeah, and watched the Champions League final. Went out after. I was like, right, keeping an eye. I was home in time for the Katie Taylor fight. I was like, this is great. This is like, I'm going to watch Katie Taylor and I'm going to watch Joshua and Ruiz. And I was struggling now with the Katie Taylor fight. I just couldn't stay awake. I gave up. As in, I closed the eyes on the armchair, woke up, and Joshua was coming into the ring. I was like, okay, I'm awake now. Let's stay up for this one. So I stayed up for that. Obviously, I watched Katie the next day, which is probably a better idea anyway.
I didn't stay awake, and I woke up to a WhatsApp from you, like, what was it? WTF, or what was it?
Something like that. See, that, yeah.
And I said, what has happened there?
No. Spoiler alert. Yeah. I should have, because that's why I always stay off my phone.
If you say spoiler alert, people know there's something coming up as well. Yeah. So, yeah. His socks were pre-blown when he saw what went down. But today's episode is sponsored by Snickers. Much like Andy Ruiz, we're powered by Snickers today, and we'll get to that fight.
Not really, but kind of spiritually.
Spiritually?
Yeah.
Well, Andy Ruiz has shown Snickers is the way forward, so there are other bars available.
Just gave up I handed in my gym membership.
Yeah.
Gerald McLennan used to eat the Snickers before every fight. Apparently, Manuel used to tell me that.
Really?
Yeah. It makes sense. Peanuts, chocolate.
Some fighters don't care. Like Terence Crawford has basically a fry-up before he fights, and one of the best fighters in the world. So there's no perfect science as much as people like to think that there is. We'll get to that fight in a second with Ruiz and Joshua, but we should start with Ireland's first undisputed champion, Shane Ross. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, was Shane Ross waiting for you in the airport when you came home?
God, I just can't believe that.
You can, though.
What a disgraceful act. In all seriousness.
No, I agree. I was disgusted because when they walked through, Brian Peters, Katie's manager, is there, and Brian,
is ousted from the picture.
He steps back. He gives her a moment.
Yeah, exactly. And Brian, of all people, would he's been involved in the whole journey since Katie Taylor went professional, and he steps back. The other lad, though,
what does he think he's going to gain from it?
He wants to be reeling in the ears in 10 years.
What does he think he's going to gain from it?
It's going to go from the FEI.
He's not involved.
The FEI thing to Katie Taylor and reeling in the ears 2019.
Does he think that by him being in the photograph, people are going to think he's associated with Katie Taylor? He's had a hand in her becoming undisputed world champion?
Yeah, even though he didn't have any less to do with it. But yeah.
You can imagine there's probably some news reporter in a different country saying, and Ireland's Katie Taylor was welcomed home, and they'll be like, and she's accompanied by her promoter there, and there'll be a picture of Shane Ross. They don't know who he is.
Smithers, what's his name, Mr. Burns, in the background.
We won't give him any more airtime. We should stick to Katie, and it's not unusual for there to be a bit of contention around an Irish boxing decision, but for once it was a close fight and we were on the right side of it, and Andy, you were one of the people that came out and said Katie was a clear winner. Just break down how you saw the fight.
I had a 6-4, as I said. I should have brought in the scorecard I have with me, but I think you could only give, the first 5 rounds, you could only give Persoon 1, and that was probably the second.
Even that, I just watched it
and
back
it could have been a draw. It could have easily, it's very hard, scoring rounds draws is tough. Judges are always told to, if you can, preference a winner and a loser in a round.
We can see the official scorecards on the screen. There's actually
exactly like this,
There's a lot of variance.
Rounds 9, I thought rounds 2 and rounds 9, either of them could have won. You could have, I think you could switch either of those out and have a winner in either rounds. Persoon finished stronger, but Katie had enough in the bank and maintained, I thought, going down the stretch and won a couple of those later rounds. So I thought I don't think, it's a close fight. They're always going to be close when you have 2 champions. Closer than anybody expected. Yeah. And I think that has a big part to play in it.
Also 2-minute rounds as well. But even the second round, before we came on here, I looked at the second round and Persoon landed some good shots in the last 30 seconds. But before that, Katie did the better work.
And she was doing that smart thing where you finish the round strong, Persoon, and it kind of catches the eye. It leaves a lasting impression that you've dominated or won the round.
As I was watching it as well, because Persoon has fought all the time, has fought in Belgium, apart from that one fight in Switzerland, I was thinking, if that fight's in Belgium, Persoon probably gets it.
Oh yeah, and you also have to take that into consideration. We spoke about with Dennis Hogan and Jaime Maniga, and going in against a champion. Now, Katie and Persoon are both champions, but Katie,
the home
you
fighter,
would say would be the home fighter, the more established fighter, the bigger name.
A-side.
It's her promotion, and you have to do more. You have to do more as a challenger. You have to do a lot more. You're not playing on it. It's not an even playing field. It's not.
Yeah.
That's historically. You always have to take it from a champion.
And we've been on the wrong end of it for Irish boxing terms.
It's like, I know what I'm saying. We have been on the wrong end of it a lot. But this is not that.
It's not one of those.
This is a win.
No, it is.
To me, what do you think?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. And
the feeling in the arena.
I think, and then there's a different thing watching a fight in the arena.
Like
there's moral victories.
Discontent in the crowd a little bit. And you can kind of sense it in the mood of the Taylor camp that they felt a little bit of a low ebb just because of the reaction. And I was sitting beside a Belgian journalist who was like, do you know, this is a joke.
Yeah.
So like it's
Did
hard
you say that makes up for Bordeaux in 2016?
So it was one of those where I was kind of being a little bit, but I thought it felt like a draw at the time.
Yeah.
It felt like 50-55.
And I thought that, you know what I think was why Katie and her people were so down or something? Because she didn't fight the plan. I don't think that was ever the plan. But Katie is a wrong worst enemy, that she gets drawn in all the time to fights.
Yeah.
And wanted to scrap and brawl.
We talked about it last week.
Yeah, and she
was so much better technically.
But she's already proven that she can do that. She doesn't need to,
to brawl.
Get in these exchanges, yeah.
But I think that's where that kind of feeling where, because Ross, I have to admit, he was quite good in the corner. What he was saying, I thought he was very good in the corner.
Really good.
And even Brian Peters was saying, just box her all night, and that's all she had to do. But any time she got put up to her, she had to respond because she is who she is. That's her character,
And while Persoon, in terms of her output, is a little bit unorthodox, it's kind of been her calling card going into this fight. She actually cut the ring off really well, I thought. Like her movement with her feet was quite good, even if what was going on at the top, Katie couldn't quite read. But as you said, she kind of forced her to exchange at times.
Yeah, well, Persoon was walking forward,
and Taylor was walking back in straight lines.
And the thing was, Katie's foot movement was kind of a plodding. She wasn't hopping. She was kind of stepping, and it kind of gave the impression that she was tired because it looked like she was in retreat.
Yeah.
In a negative way, and also in a kind of a tired kind of the way she was a slow plodding backward step instead of being up on her toes, hopping and skipping back. And also, Persoon was walking forward, but slightly angling her march forward to Persoon's left.
Yeah.
So Katie had to circle to the right, and what that was doing was she was walking onto the right hand of Persoon. Smart fight. I know it's crude, but she was smart in her own way. Persoon.
There are so many dynamics to defense in boxing. People do it different ways, and obviously Katie was just trying to step back, make her fall short, and then come back over. But if you have to get that so right, and if you get it wrong, you're going to get caught on the way out, and that's what kept happening to her.
You look back at the first couple of rounds, she's boxing to the plan, and I think then she kind of reverted back to it in the sixth round. It was where
one of her best rounds.
Yeah, you were just thinking that's how you win, but. We talked about it last week, how if she gets dragged into a war, like against McCaskill, where much better boxer, and it's just her nature, is just to say, right, let's go toe to toe. But the last round, if there was a bit longer left in the round, you're wondering what was going to happen. And another thing that kind of struck me is that Persoon kind of just, she's a slow starter usually, but did she just suss out Katie Taylor at the start, think, I want to see what her power is like? And is power an issue because the amateur game is all about getting in combinations, score your points, and I know Katie Taylor has talked about it before, trying to sit down on her punches more to create more power, but it just seemed to me like towards the end of the fight, Persoon was just walking through her, just like a machine. At times, very crude. I kind of thought maybe she's going to get a point taken off her at some stage for Persoon because she was...
Dirty.
Should have.
Dirty.
3 times on or after the bell, she hit Katie and shots behind the back of the head. And granted, Taylor would come back any time.
She had to respond, Katie.
Exactly.
That's what a fighter has to do.
But she never initiated it. It was always in retaliation.
This is where Persoon just jumped straight into it with the shoulder, right under the chin. And I don't know, I don't want to criticize her. Eventually they were both at it, but Katie was, like you said, was only doing it in response. Katie's she talked about sitting down on her feet, and some of that footwork when she was moving back is trying to adapt to be more of a professional kind of. But with Persoon, she needed to box like an amateur, and she's a great combination puncher. That's one of her strengths. But with somebody like Persoon, you only need to throw 1 or 2 punches and have an authoritative jab, and always know where, once you throw that punch, where you're going to go after the punch. Whether you're going to take your head to the left, to the right, whether you're going to roll out, or whether you're going to bounce back. And depending on the situation you're in that moment, have an answer of what you're going to do. Know what before you punch. And I think like Katie could have just let 1 or 2 punches, 1, 2, straight 1, 2, an authoritative jab, and then even a lead right hand when Persoon was marching forward. And also there were like, Persoon is a person who has to set herself and have a kind of got that, like her front foot, her lead foot, like she takes a huge step up, lifts her heel off the floor and everything, and that's easily like you can easily time that. And so there'd be times where Katie could have timed her a lot better and caught, like after the exchange, maneuvered around, and then caught Persoon with punches when Persoon was trying to reorganize, when she wasn't ready to exchange. But I think Katie gave her the initiative a little bit too much. But I think if there's a rematch, which there seems to be now, then I think Katie will win handy if she just follows the plan and doesn't get drawn in. And that's what she has to do now.
It's safe to say Katie can change her approach in the event of a rematch, whereas Persoon is that's the way she's going to be. And it was quite refreshing in the press conferences. She was sort of saying, if this is a boxing match, I have no chance. I have to make it a barroom brawl, I think she said. So that's what it turned out to be at times. And like, if the fight does materialise, the rematch, you just fancy Katie to get the job done a lot cleaner if she just sticks to her boxing.
Yeah, and I
think it will be tough. It's always going to be a tough fight with her. It's always going to be a hard match because Katie will, whatever happens at one moment or another, she will have to fight. She will fight because of who she is. But she could have a lot more round 6s. And especially
round
early
6 was fantastic.
She was beautiful boxing.
One of the best rounds from an Irish boxer in a world title fight, probably. Just the Bull Matador sort of dynamic.
And considering what she'd done up to that point in terms of how tired they both were, the punches she had taken, the punches she had landed.
Such a difficult thing to do, I imagine, to once you're in the trenches like that, to maybe
to change, to switch, because once you start down a certain path in the fight, whether you start slow, fast, whether you be aggressive or box, it's very hard to switch it up. But look, some part of me feels like I'd love to see Katie Taylor just retire now and sail off into the sunset as unified champion, and in 3 months no one's going to remember this was a disputed decision. And it's not.
I actually feel even in the last couple of days it's gone from that contention to people have finally sort of parked it and realised it was a really close fight. Katie won it.
Watch the fight back, not like at 2 in the morning if you've been out watching the Champions League final, and you have to actually try and detach yourself from all the emotion. And when I saw you tweeting that you'd watched it, I knew you would have watched it with the sound down, and just you have an idea what you're looking for, and you can award round by round.
It's round by round, exactly. It's not who finishes the fight stronger. If it's a street fight and there's no rounds, then you think, oh well, he's won it because he's won. Like, you know what I mean? He's outlasted you.
Or who's got the most damage in their face?
Yeah.
Like, that's.
And I don't not to be the hurling snob about it and start saying people don't know what they're looking at, but like, there's an elemental thing about boxing where people think everyone has had like a little scrap or whatever, and can probably think they know what they're looking at, but.
It's like when you have a black eye after sparring and people are like, oh, you've really got it today. Someone's really who did that to you, you know what I mean?
People probably looking at Persoon marching forward the entire time, throwing punches relentlessly and thinking, oh, well, the theme of the fight is that Persoon is on top, whereas it's punches scored and clean punches scored. A lot of Persoon shots weren't in the scoring zones and behind the head and all this kind of stuff. So,
also as well, was it a factor that we're so used to Katie Taylor being dominant that when we saw somebody put it up to her, then people say, well, this is the toughest fight she's ever been in, so hence we're going to mark her down on it?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Like, I think we were being creditable to Persoon. Like, oh, that's better than most people do against Katie, let's give her that round. And then after a while you're giving a round she probably didn't merit. And at the time, or having watched it back even, I thought Katie won 5 of the first 7 rounds. So even by that metric, if you want to be extremely generous to Persoon in the back end of the fight, Katie only needs a share of a round or 1 round to win the fight, and that's what happened. And the judges, they have the best view in the house, and that's what they concluded.
What was your view like?
Well, at the time, I was getting a little bit nervous, to be honest, because after it was so competitive, and we sort of give out about 2-minute rounds. I don't know what the quite the right word is, but like 2-minute rounds aren't always ideal in women's boxing, but it actually helped this fight in terms of the pace was fantastic, and you could see by the reaction, leaving the scoring to one side, a lot of prominent boxers were saying it's one of the best fights I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Certainly the best women's boxing match I've probably ever seen. So
yeah, that's important as well, that it was a really good fight, and those people that have knocked women's boxing or say it doesn't belong in the pro ranks, I mean, after watching that, it's hard to argue why women's boxing shouldn't be there.
I just find it ironic that every time Katie picked up a belt, and she's obviously got the full set now, it's like, oh sure, who's she fighting? And the fights aren't competitive, and then she has a competitive fight and everyone's like, oh, that fight was way too competitive. Like, so I don't know. So looks like a rematch. Just speaking to the team after it seemed they probably had tentative plans for what they were going to do. Had the win been a bit more routine, like stay in New York, and there's talk of Heather Hardy probably and someone New York based, and Katie could headline the show. But I think the best thing is to just have the rematch, and we'll get on to it. It looks like Joshua Ruiz is going to be a rematch, so that'll be a good double header again maybe, and it's an easy one to build for Sky, you know, rematch, revenge, all this kind of stuff. So that's probably the best course of action.
Yeah, no, I'd watch it again, and I'd be interested to see what Katie herself is like when she looks back at the fight. Is like, how critical is she of herself?
Hugely, I'd say. She probably wouldn't give herself enough credit, you know. But like, that's probably the best course of action for us as fans and for the promoters. But probably Brian Peters probably thinking, if he could get away with it, I'm not sure if he can, give her a couple of easier fights, defend her title,
like that kind of,
and then
like
have the rematch.
Yeah.
You know, next year in the summer at some point. But can they swing that? Can they actually?
It's probably tough.
Can they get away with it? That's the thing.
I don't think anyone would.
And Katie will want to get back in there. So her mandate will be to Brian and to Eddie Hearn, I want to fight Persoon again. So don't.
That was the word from Katie Taylor when she arrived at the airport on Tuesday, saying, you know, give me the fight again. Whereas Brian Peters was a bit more tentative, where he said, there will be a rematch, but we do have plans for something beforehand. Yeah, maybe Persoon needs another fight outside Belgium. Maybe, you know.
The problem is you end up with the same thing as was happening with Anthony Joshua now, where someone could likely beat her, and then the fight's gone.
Yeah,
but that would be good for Brian Peters, I think. And Katie, they'd be quite happy if it did happen.
And like, obviously the grand plan at the start of 2019 was beat Vellante, beat Persoon, Amanda Serrano in December. Amanda Serrano has a little bit of a cold feeder, so it seems. But I think if that fight was made for December, I think people would, because it's such a super fight, that if it wasn't Persoon, that's probably an option. And Katie was on record talking to us saying that Persoon's a harder fight than Serrano, and physically it is. Like, it's just technically Serrano's on another level to Persoon, and it'd probably be more of a chess match than what transpired the other night. But you can see what she meant. Like, it was pretty much borne out. So the rematch is probably the most likely, and we're on course for a massive one in the heavyweight division after Andy Ruiz shocked the world at Madison Square Garden. This was Mike Costello's take on the closing stages.
Ruiz mounts another attack. Joshua in trouble, and Joshua goes down for the third time in the contest. In the 7th round, he's up almost immediately. The referee gets to 6 and to 7 and to the mandatory 8. He has a good look at Joshua, but there are 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go in round number 7. Are we about to witness one of the great heavyweight upsets? Joshua tries a couple of left hooks. He's still fighting back, and now Ruiz opens up a left hook, a right hand, and Joshua goes down again for the 2nd time in a round. Joshua is looking like a beaten man. He's listening to the count. The referee reaches the mandatory 8. Joshua spits out the gum shield. He won't be allowed to continue without the gum shield being replaced. The referee's talking to him over in the corner. Such drama here, and absolutely everybody at ringside on their feet, and the referee has waved it off. We have seen one of the most sensational upsets in the history of Madison Square Garden, in the history of heavyweight boxing. Anthony Joshua has been stopped by Andy Ruiz Jr. in the 7th round. All the talk of Deontay Wilder, of Tyson Fury, can be silenced. Andy Ruiz has just thrown a grenade into the heavyweight landscape. The boy who was bullied at school, who was laughed at the final press conference, they will be laughing no more. Andy Ruiz Jr. on a quite unforgettable night here becomes Mexico's first world heavyweight champion, taking in the celebrations as Anthony Joshua stands disconsolate in the corner on the far side of the ring, beaten for the first time in his professional career. He is no longer the world heavyweight champion. What a night, what a fight.
There you go, the incomparable Mike Costello there. His comms of round 3, well worth seeking out as well. This part of the show might be a bit all over the place because there's a lot to digest and we probably jump around a little bit.
Just to go back to Mike Costello, that line, it has to be one of the best lines that Andy Ruiz threw a grenade.
It's class.
Yeah, because it's perfect.
Landscape.
Yeah.
That guy does it in the moment. You know, he's doing it, he does a lot of preparation. Like when I've worked with him, the night before he'd go and talk to anybody, he'll spend it in his room and he's got, he comes with a stack of notes like that for every fighter. But for a lot of times he's just in the moment and he's calling it as he sees it in real time. And Mike Costello is, he's just to sit beside him. It's like you're witnessing something by being there.
And he's because of his health issues, unfortunately he missed the Joshua Klitschko fight. I think McIntosh got the call for that one, but it's great that he's got a few brilliant fights of late, especially Fury against Wilder, and this one, his voice is now forever attached to these fights, and it's a great thing. Just to, as I said, there's a lot to get into, but what we do know is Andy Ruiz is the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
Mexico's first ever.
The destroyer.
And Carl Frampton said afterwards it's the biggest shock he's ever experienced in boxing. I'd say he probably meant in the arena, but probably broadly speaking as well, it's up there. Where do you contextualise it, Andy? Where is it for you?
Well, you're waking up the next day and I know you guys have been the same. The reality has changed, it was like a shift, because in your mind, going to sleep that night or in the lead up, you just think, this is a foregone conclusion, and even the demeanours before, the week of the fight. Oh, that's great.
We're just looking at Andy Ruiz leaping for joy.
The week of the fight, you could just see how happy Anthony Joshua was and how. I just thought he's just gonna walk in and
business as usual.
Blast through this guy, and Ruiz seemed pretty happy to be there. He had nothing to lose, and no one gave him a shot except him. No one really believed in himself except him. And to put it in, it's probably not bigger than Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas, but it's probably just right behind
it's
that.
Up there.
Yeah,
but a lot of people have been drawing those comparisons. So Buster Douglas has been brought up a lot. You've got Foreman against Michael Moore, and then you've got even Lennox Lewis had a couple against Oliver McCall, Hasim Rahman. But the difference with those were Hollywood, one shot, turned the tide, and it was all over. Whereas from the start, even though the first 2 rounds were quite quiet, systematically Andy Ruiz was breaking Joshua down, and especially the 3rd round was where it all sort of blew up. And in some sense, Joshua knocking him down was the worst thing he did, because it closed the distance and it let Ruiz get his little arms off, because obviously the height differential and the reach differential. But by closing the gap, Joshua opened the door for Ruiz, and Ruiz bowled right through it.
Yeah, I was interested to see the reaction in the corner after the first round. So Rob McCracken, who's taken a lot of flack since the defeat, and Lennox Lewis calling for Joshua to train or to change his trainer, but his instructions to Joshua were just keep jabbing up and down, keep it long, don't rush, and don't let your hands down. That's what his instructions were at the end of the first round. And even after the 3rd round, he said you got to tie him up. You can't let him get inside you. And it's amazing that when Joshua got when he knocked him down, he thought this is going to be it. This is just going to be the routine finish. But something inside Andy Ruiz just triggered, where he's like, if I'm going down, I'm going to go down swinging. And
he actually said that, yeah. The Mexican in me came out. I was like, if you're going to put me down, I'm going to have to put you down. And he'd never been on the canvas before.
No.
So
What a reaction.
We're talking about Joshua kind of wilting under the pressure. But Ruiz was in a situation he'd never been familiar with before as well.
When you look at that exchange in round 3, after he dropped Ruiz, the punches, I don't know how many punches were thrown. There could have been 20, but everyone from Joshua was a hard, like he was basically biting down and throwing everything he had in those punches with no regard for defense or what was coming back at him. And when you're like that, you're totally exposed, and you're totally at your weakest point, because anything that you get clipped with, it's going to put you down, because you're using all of your momentum, all of your power is being used against you in that instance, and that's exactly what happened. It was some turnaround.
It seems like ancient history now, but the press conference was a bit of a farce, because Joshua handed him the belts, and it just felt like he was a fan. And actually, Ruiz just played us all, because he said all along, I'm going to win this fight, and everyone's like, oh, good one. But he believed it. And Manny Robles, more significantly, speaking to him, he's not a messer, and he was saying, we've got a game plan, and they did, because every time Joshua threw a single shot, it was like a tripwire reflex. It was as if he was told, every time Joshua throws a single shot, you come back with a combination. And how many people can do that in heavyweight boxing? He's got the fastest hands in the division, arguably. And then the other thing, which was very notable, body work. Dillian White hurt Joshua to the body, and it was actually a similar left hook that Ruiz knocked Joshua down on the temple, but White was a lot more clean, but it was also a left hook that almost, think how different the landscape would be if White had stepped on the gas back then.
Probably White in there. Probably White in Madison Square Garden.
It could have been, yeah.
But Ruiz definitely, you could see kind of from round 6, there was a definite shift in body work. He was looking at Joshua's body, and Joshua just looked like he was gassed out.
But it wasn't, when you're such a big, tall, robotic guy, and you're fighting someone shorter than you, and what Ruiz did was so smart. He didn't punch first. He didn't come in punching. He just stood there. He had a steady march forward with his hands quite high, and he just was taking what was coming, and then as soon as it come, bop, 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 bop.
It was interesting, wasn't it?
And he was just creating an anxiety and like an insecurity in Joshua all the time, and that's why Joshua wasn't really comfortable jabbing, because he was falling short and he wasn't landing.
He knew every time he threw, it was coming back.
And there was something quicker coming back at him, and the difference in speed was quite, it wasn't shocking, but it was you could see it straight away that this guy has way faster hands than Joshua.
Yeah.
Joshua wouldn't have been known to be that slow.
No.
That even for a big, robust fella, he was always quite fast with it, especially with the right hand. And he just it was a very good game plan. Very good, very great strategy, that they just let him come, and then pop with him, punch with him. Because when you're punching with somebody, you're taking away all their advantages of height and reach, because you're in the exchange.
Yeah.
So it was really smart.
I think as well, at the end of one of the rounds, you could kind of briefly hear Ruiz and Robles talking, and I'm pretty sure I heard Ruiz saying, I took his right hand. Because in the third round, he took a whopper of a right hand off Joshua after the knockdown, and he was still there. So that's when I started thinking, geez, this lad ain't going.
Look at Ruiz. Everyone, look at his belly, look at his body. But one thing you should look at his neck. His neck is he's got his neck, and he's got no chin because his neck is so big, you know what I mean? His neck is huge, and he can take a punch. That's that's probably the only physical advantage he has on Joshua, is that he has a huge neck, and that obviously helps him take big punches.
Yeah,
so when he was put down, he got up, and he held the punch better than Joshua did. And what we can get into the conspiracy theories now, there's a lot floating around, but what was shocking was just was what's going on here? It's how readily acceptable it was for Joshua, and how he accepted it, even while it was happening, that he was on the ground. There was no desperation, there was no disbelief, there was no you can always take something aside, because you can say he's concussed, he doesn't know where he is, he's not acting in his right mind, but the fact that he was just getting put down and didn't recover after the third round, and was always shaky after that, and just that he was just openly accepting that this was happening to him.
Yeah.
And there was no fire. When you say when Ruiz was put down, he bit down, he took his chance and went out fighting. Joshua just was okay. I'll take this.
At the ending, like what do we make at the ending? Like he spits out the mouthpiece, but then he's leaning on the ropes.
He's trying to buy time. I think he's trying to buy time. He thinks he'll get away with it. That the referee will take him out and walk him around and.
Well, the referee let him off the hook because at the end of the third round, if it was a role reversal, that fight was over. He would have called it, but he gave Joshua the benefit of the doubt, and. I don't know. It was just such a weird vibe. His reaction didn't seem right after the fight either. He said, it was a great effing fight and all this kind of stuff. It's like, a champion shouldn't really be reacting like that. I'm sure he's, like, the morning after, he was, like, a little bit gutted.
He has a bit of, like, form in that, like, after his fights where he grabs the microphone, does big speeches, and you're always like, it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird, like,
he's so PR savvy, it's almost as if he didn't know how to react. It's like he's got this humble persona and he probably thought he had to maintain that. I don't think anyone would have begrudged him sort of being a bit annoyed. Like, you saw Persoon after her fight, granted very different context, but she was out of the ring.
But that's the desire you want to see.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see. And I was on last night with Joe on Off the Ball, and like, a fighter loses a fight, or is on the way to losing a fight, it means so much because if you, like, it's your livelihood. It's how you earn your living, and it's your pride. It's your pride as a man that you're in a fight, and people are watching you, and you don't want to give anything away. You don't want to lose, of course. You're a competitive person, but also it's how you make your living. And there's always that, like, you know, if you lose a fight, you're not going to be as sellable. You're not going to get most fighters won't get a rematch. Most fighters won't get another shot until 6 or 7 months, where they'll have to start again at the bottom, fighting a few bums, and then might never get another shot at the title. But like, that's with Joshua, he's never had that. He's never faced that desperation because he's always been a superstar in the sense that he's always been made lots of money, sold out arenas, and I don't think. Like, it's a different reality from him, from most fighters. That's why there wasn't that desperation.
You think, like, he's not that kind of natural, he doesn't have that natural instinct of an out-and-out fighter where, you know, he's well marketed, he's used to winning, and he doesn't have that fighter's instinct maybe that, because, you know, he took boxing up quite late. And, he wouldn't have been, you know, that young kid in the gym at a young age, and this is part of the journey. And when you're in the depths of it and you're under pressure, you think back to these times like, I didn't do all this hard work for nothing. I just thought, it's not that it just seemed all too accepting. Not only have you lost, but let's be honest, like, you're a laughing stock now for. Because
well, that's Like,
I'm not trying to take anything away from Ruiz.
Like, we'll get into the conspiracy theories in a minute. I'm not sure if you after the fight, I watched an interview with Derek Chisora outside the ring, and it's maybe a 40-second interview with IFL, and they're like, Dillian, what's your reaction? And he was like, I blame a lot of people for this. I blame a lot of people. This wouldn't have happened if it was in England. He's a laughing stock now, and that is the reality. That. Because not that he didn't lose to Fury, he didn't lose to Wilder, he lost to Andy Ruiz, and people are only going to look at Andy Ruiz. They're not going to look at the boxing record. They're not going to look at his skills or that. They're going to look at this guy who's obese, who's short, and he's really nice, and that's who beat up Anthony Joshua. You know, this knockout artist, knockout machine from England. You know, and it's
on his US debut.
This is like, I'm not sure if he'll ever face this. I don't know if he's in like. Manu told me, like, and he's been compared now to Vladimir, who's had big losses like this against guys who's supposed to be. But Emmanuel told me when he's like, after the Brewster loss for Vladimir, like, they were walking down the street in New York with Vladimir. I think they were announcing the Sammy Peter fight, which was the following fight. And like, Emmanuel was very well known. So this homeless guy comes up to Emmanuel, and Vladimir's saying, "Oh, Emmanuel Stewart, great to see you, great to meet you." Blah blah blah. "Oh, Klitschko, man, you're a bad motherfucker. You're bad." This and that, you know. That was a great fight with Lennox Lewis, and Manu said, "No, that's his brother." And he's like, "Man, you got your ass beat, man. You ain't like," and Manu just said, like, Vladimir just went, like, he just shrunk, you know, like, shrunk down to, and that's probably what Andy Joshua, like, he's maybe probably still in New York now, who knows, but when he walks around the street, when he sees somebody, people are going to be having a little laugh behind his back. People are going to be like. And that's the reality of things. That's it, like, you know. Maybe he doesn't care if he's sitting in his mansion with whatever, you know, driving his Bentley and living his life and staying humble. Like, I don't know.
It was funny, like, the questions being asked of him before the fight. We were getting the usual token Anthony Joshua answers, but Carl Frampton got an interesting one from him when he asked him about the Klitschko fight, and Joshua said, "Oh, if I have any more like that, I might just pack it in." And we said it wasn't going to be like Naz against Kevin Kelly, and it actually turned out to be an up and down sort of fight. And like, you can't have too many more of them, especially in the heavyweight division, if you're up and down. But like, it's difficult. I saw Julian Williams tweeting about people calling him a quitter, and there's a few fighters, notably Wilder has come out and called him a quitter, but like, after getting up 4 times, it's hard to call someone a quitter necessarily. But it's an interesting point you made, Phil, about him not being a natural born fighter, because like Ruiz he's boxed since he was a kid, and
it's in the blood.
Boxed like, as an amateur from Mexico, so I think he won 100 fights as an amateur. So like, when both fighters are tired and hurt, the muscle memory and the natural reflexes are with Ruiz, so he's doing instinctual things that just aren't in Joshua. He's such a systematic sort of thinker, whereas Ruiz is throwing shots that just come naturally to him.
Like, even in the corner, and I think he wasn't prepared for that reality to happen, like for him to be in that position on the floor. Like, and also when you're concussed, you don't know what's going on anyway. But like it's in round 5, 2 rounds after being knocked down twice, he asked Robert McCracken, what did he land? What did he hit me with? 2 rounds after. And he was like a left hook. And like, there was this ongoing conversations between them in the corners, between McCracken and Joshua. And there was like the most basic questions that you shouldn't have to tell a fighter. You know, what do I do? What do I land? Just jab, you know. And McCracken, I don't care what you say, who's giving him criticism, in the corner, he told him exactly what to do. Don't hook. Don't look for the hook. Don't look for the hooks. Just keep it straight. Keep it long. That's all he had to do.
I know. I agree with that, but he was telling him what not to do, but he wasn't telling him exactly what to do. And when you're hurt and not thinking straight, you should have been giving him exact techniques of what you should be doing or where Ruiz is falling short. And he didn't really do that. Granted, Joshua's been told what not to do, but he was walking out going, "I'm not supposed to hook. I'm not supposed." You know what I mean? I thought he should have been a bit clearer in terms of offensively rather than defensively. I presume they were just trying to stay alive in the fight and maybe take over at the end, but never got the chance. But just a couple of quick points on the new heavyweight champ. We mentioned there good amateur pedigree and a lot of pro pedigree as well. Like Ferrer, obviously the Cuban coach. Then he was with Freddie Roach for a little while, and then he was with he's obviously with Manny Robles now.
David
Sanchez for a little while.
Why did they get rid of him?
They don't get rid of him. Like I've said, they could be the opposite. He could get rid of them. You know, it's like, I don't think so. But Freddie Roach had
Chavez for a little while, and when he kept turning up out of shape, Freddie Roach was like, I'm done with this guy. But like, he mightn't look physically fit, but cardiovascularly, he's after fighting a few weeks ago against a guy with a similar stature to Joshua, so he's prepared. He's got his eye in, and then he's coming back-to-back camps. So he's actually had great preparation for this, and we saw against Parker, which was a high-paced fight. He was in there right at the end, and he arguably won the back end of that fight. So just because he doesn't look the part, and we mentioned powered by Snickers, but he just has a layer of protection over himself. He's actually not unfit.
What do you get into? Do you guys get into any of these rumours that Joshua had a panic attack before the fight?
Well, the panic attack one, he released a video there on his own YouTube channel.
I've seen that.
He that one specifically, he said, I've never suffered with them. But there's other stuff like which people were talking about on the night, and you don't want to put too much stock because it could easily be nonsense. But just that he was hurt badly in sparring, that his dad didn't want him to take the fight, and you saw the exchange between his dad and Eddie Hearn in the ring, which I don't know if that was why they were having it, but it was definitely significant that the two lads were having a bit of a spat on live television. But yeah, Eddie Hearn himself was at pains to say nothing went wrong, but what has gone wrong is the grand plan, and we mentioned Mike Costello said the grenade in the heavyweight division, and the Wilder Fury fights are dead in the water as things stand. But we saw with Mayweather-Pacquiao most famously that they tried to marinate it for so long, and then Pacquiao did get beaten. He got beaten off Tim Bradley. Granted, that was very contentious, but he got knocked out by Marquez, and yet as time passed, the fight built up again, and it made more money than it ever would have.
It was an awful fight, though. It was about 5 years too late.
Commercially speaking,
I was thinking after the fight, though, everyone's saying, that's the end of Joshua and Wilder. But is this not a case where Joshua now probably has less time in terms of what's left in his pro career, that he mightn't have many fights left? So if he wants to get a big payday, like a big massive payday, he's got to take Wilder or Fury in the next couple of fights. Or if you're Eddie Hearn, you're thinking, there's no way we're putting him in with Wilder. If you see what Ruiz Jr. did to him, imagine what Wilder would do if he landed one of those right hands.
I think like Eddie Hearn's reaction in the interviews, he was fully aware of what the loss meant to all of them, to Sky, to DAZN, to Joshua, to his selling power. Like, it's a huge loss in terms of, and that side of things, in terms of selling yourself to America. You debut there on the platform. You're supposed to be like the flag bearer for DAZN, and then you win against Andy Ruiz and get beat. And not only get beat, you get humiliated. You don't you? It was, because it wasn't like it was a slugfest. It was a slugfest. It wasn't like it was a back and forth fight. Because once he goes down in the third round, it's only going one way. It only seems that way. He never recovers, never. And it's a huge blow in that sense. And Eddie Hearn's reaction, you could see that he was angry, and you could see that he fully knew, even if Joshua didn't know. And I'm not sure, and I don't wish it on him that he kind of realised what's happened. The reality will sink in time, but he just, by all accounts, the rematch clause is going to be activated, and he'll get his chance. We
saw Lewis against McCall. He came back right at that wrong straight away. But
what was the difference?
Totally different fight.
What was the difference in those fights? Emmanuel Stewart trained Oliver McCall for the first fight, and then trained Lennox for the second fight. And also McCall had a mental breakdown in the second one. I don't think Andy Ruiz will ever do that.
No, definitely not.
The only thing Joshua can do is change. He can not be so upright. Try to be a little bit more three-dimensional. And if he has to December to do that, then he can make those adjustments. Kind of try to sit a bit lower in his legs and take away his own height, so that he's punching at a similar level. Not all the time, but sometimes. And use his jab without committing to it. And just see, but Ruiz will be very confident, I think, and in a rematch.
Yeah, I saw him on Jimmy Kimmel.
I didn't see it, but I just see the video of him going to Jimmy Kimmel.
He's very confident.
Where he got where Jimmy Kimmel sent him a limo, and he was like, such a lovely guy. He was just like, Jimmy blessed me with a limo. There was a video. It was so funny. I'm sure you've seen. Sky Sports got him after the fight. The next morning, he's outside the hotel. There was a guy in Irish rugby jersey behind him. See that one? Yeah. And he was like, this guy, I think it was Fraser Dayton, was saying can you believe this? He still pinching himself. Has it set in? He was like, no, maybe tomorrow. And it was just the sweetest little line. It was like a child, It's so beautiful.
It's the heavyweight champ.
Yeah.
By the way, how would Ruiz Jr. do against Wilder or Fury?
I think Wilder, it might be a similar fight. It's just Wilder.
What do you think happens if, Al Heyman's such a... I'm sorry to cut over you. Yeah, go on, answer that question. What do you think happens, if that fight actually happens, if Al Heyman actually, maneuvers things where it's Wilder and now Ruiz, and they get out with the rematch with Joshua?
I think the rematch will happen, but if he beats Joshua again, it's straight to the bank for Al Heyman, because he's just going to make the undisputed fight, and it's all PBC.
Yeah.
That could be a huge one. But just on AJ, inactivity is something I brought up last week, and from a very early point in his career, he's been a 2-fight-a-year fighter, and it's very... I don't know how sitting in your career you got into that mode, Andy, but he was in his mid-20s when he started becoming 2 fight a year, and he's still learning the dearth of amateur experience. He's learning on the job as a pro. He was world champion against Charles Martin, and against Dominic Brazil he was still trying out new things. So where he goes from here, I just think he needs to get busier, and then if he wins this fight,
he has to have the rematch though. He's kind of in a tough place.
Yeah. Where's that going to be?
It looks like the UK. They couldn't wait to get back to the UK.
The thing is that his fights are such a Ben Santi. He's a victim of his own success in that sense. He can't go off and have a fight in a small venue on an undercard because of who he is.
He has to fight at Wembley in November. You can't have a Wembley fight in November, December.
Probably beat Cardiff, but we were kind of wondering what he was going to do if he had beaten Ruiz. There was talk of Pula, but that's a bit of a yawn for everybody. But at least this is a marketable. This is a good fight that people are going to be excited about. And I went to Jimmy's corner on your recommendation, Andy, and all the posters of heavyweight champs that had been beaten and came back. So maybe he can follow in that lineage, and maybe this could be the making of him rather than...
I think Lennox Lewis was pitching for the job.
Maybe. Well, Lennox, they have a weird sort of dynamic. It's as if, I think Lewis tried to sign him out of the Olympics as his promoter, and then it just kind of went up.
He did have David Price at one stage, remember that?
Yeah.
Remember Lennox was having David Price?
Yeah, that would have been the Maloney connection.
Yeah, so we should probably just rattle through the rest of the card. It was absolutely brilliant card, in fairness.
What time did you get there,
expected, like,
Callum Smith, chief support, it was kind of the most routine win of the night.
What a night for him.
He's fantastic.
The Scouse.
He's probably the best UK fighter, is he, at the moment? It's hard to argue with that.
No, it's hard to argue with that.
And Dam's not anything special at super middleweight. Had been a good operator at middleweight, obviously, but Smith just dismissed any threat and was brilliant in each round. It was almost a punch-perfect performance. And you just would kind of hope he can get a good fight at super middleweight before he has to grow out of that division.
Yeah, it was clinical.
Yeah, and I think Canelo looked at it and was like, no thanks.
Yeah, it's right. That right-handed finish, it was class, and his defence is really tight as well.
Yeah.
I know, he's got a quite high defence, and that's how Canelo got the better of Rocky Fielding, but he wouldn't
different animals.
He wouldn't be able to do that to Callum Smith.
One of the competitive fights, which we also earmarked last week, that it was no gimme for Josh Kelly, and it certainly wasn't. Often when the B-side fighter gets a draw, it normally suggests the B-side fighter won. It was a lot closer than people are making out. It was another one where people were crying robbery, but it wasn't. It was a really close fight. And Kelly, again, it's something we said about after his last fight. He just needs to throw more punches. It's all well and good making your opponent miss, but you need to.
What you'll see for it, and even with Joshua, when you go to America, the standard is much higher than what's in Britain and in Europe because of the competitive gyms and how they're trained from kids as pros.
Yeah.
They're doing 3-minute rounds as kids in the gym, and they're fighting and sparring with pros all the time. And all that stuff that Josh does, that flashy stuff, Ray Robinson's seen that so many times. He's seen it every day of the week, you know what I mean? And I thought Josh won the fight. I thought I had it. How did I have it? I had it 5-3 with 2 draws. Now draws rounds are whatever, but I still thought Josh Kelly won the fight. But he kind of has to get a bit more consistent with it. If he had a jab, if he just used the jab, he didn't jab really a lot in that fight. You get more consistent with basic boxing and then mix in the flashy stuff. But what a fight, and Ray Robinson would beat a lot of fighters, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Second fight in a row where he's kind of been he's starting.
I think it's only the champions that the top fighters will beat him because he's a.
You can't really say he's made a name for himself because he's got the most famous name in boxing. But just a point made by Shane McGuigan that if you're going to have this sort of high twitch, one punch style, you need to have knockout power, and Kelly doesn't quite have that. So he just needs to modify things, start putting combinations together, and he should be fine. In terms of the open of the televised portion of the card, Tommy Coyle against Chris Algieri delivered what it promised. Coyle hurt him early in the fight, but Algieri, he might look like he does all this modelling and stuff, and he's got this nutrition background and a smart guy, but he's actually a tough MF. He gets stuck in, and he broke Tommy down, and compassionate from Jamie Moore, who knows a thing or two about being in the trenches, and he even thought, I don't want to see my guy.
Perfect call.
And they've got a familial sort of link.
There's a nice picture of them in the hospital together, and kind of just how Tommy Coyle just said, he's obviously a trainer and a friend that he's here. He's here with me. He cares about me.
Yeah. You wouldn't have blamed him saying, "Look, I'm going to watch it." Jamie Moore saying, "I've missed the best fight in years, sitting in the hospital with you." I'm saying, that goes back to the point. The standard in America is much higher. The standard, it's a different level when you get over there, so you have to prepare for that.
Yeah. And while all this was going on in New York, Stephen Ormond had another tough night at the office, and by all accounts, I didn't
see it now, but yeah,
we'll have to catch up with Stephen hopefully in the next few weeks.
But like I say, look at the difference in Joshua. If Stephen Ormond was in the position Joshua was in, how do you think he'd react to being dropped? He'd get up and he'd fight his heart out.
Yeah.
But it's just, the realities of being a pro, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to gloss over the fact that Golovkin's fighting this week, but after what happened last week, we should probably just mention that he's fighting Steve Rolls. So
Steve Rolls,
a little bit of Kronk heritage there, Andy.
Yeah.
Hopefully it can pay dividends. Jonathan Banks, of course, is in Golovkin's corner, so it'll be interesting.
Strange, not a strange one, but convenient one for Glocken to pick Banks as a trainer, and a convenient opponent, Steve Rolls.
To get him back.
Will get rolled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also Oscar Valdez, who might be coming very much onto the horizon of Irish boxing again with Carl Frampton. That looks like a fight that's been primed for the end of the year. So still a lot more boxing this weekend. Mightn't be quite as dramatic as what just went down, but we'll leave it there for this week, lads. Thanks for coming in.
Just before we go, you have the programme there
I do, yeah.
from Saturday night.
Oh yeah, just a bit of theme signed by Katie Taylor. Didn't want to be unprofessional and start getting pictures with her, but she was signing programmes for the Irish media, so I just thought I'd get one of them. But
also there was a the junior team did well, the amateur team did well in the Europeans. I know Mike Stunner who won a gold medal, and a couple of others. There was a girl there who won a gold medal, so I think they had 5 medals from the team, so congratulations to them.
Yeah.
What about just Joe Ward? Talk today that Joe Ward is going to turn pro.
Yeah,
that's a story, and it's a story that Kevin Byrne is reporting on in the Irish Sun, and Kevin was obviously the reporter that broke the Katie Taylor story going pro a few years ago. 25, has won everything in amateur boxing except an Olympic medal.
But it's the uncertainty around as Olympic boxing stands at the moment that they're just not sure. Like, it's probably the safer bet at this point in time just to...
Look at Michael Conlon going, like, he hung around and look what happened to him in Rio.
Yeah.
Just get out. But
it is a big commitment. The Olympic cycle is a big commitment, so you'd want to be fairly sure you're going to qualify. So we'll leave it there for this week, lads. Thanks a lot to everyone for tuning in, and we'll chat to you next week.